let's take a look at the New York City mayor race, for instance. You have a leftist candidate who's probably going to win. The guy is not an alleged socialist. He proclaims himself as a
Yeah.
socialist.
Yeah.
It could be alleged that he's a communist, even,
Mm-hmm.
and he might not be able to back too far away from that. The gentleman has some rather, in my opinion, idiotic viewpoints. Now, when that kind of thing happens and you get certain type of people elected into office, as you just said, you create a pendulum effect.
Mm-hmm.
If Mamdani wins this election, who will, this is a good question. Who will become the mayor of New York City 5
Yeah.
years from now after he
Yeah.
fails completely?
Mm-hmm.
They've
It'll be
had Republican mayors before in New York City.
sure. They had some good ones back when he was running things. Rudy Giuliani did more good than bad. It could be argued. He was the
Yes.
9/11 mayor. He's just sort of gone off the rails ever since. And Bloomberg was good, even though he's a registered Democrat, but he ran it like a businessman. I think if you go a big city like that, we had best mayor I've ever seen is a guy that we used to have. He's no longer alive. Named Richard Reardon, and that guy he ran it like a business. He ran a surplus. The city did great. It's when you have when you're dealing with a big city. Rick Caruso would be good if we could get him. I was hoping that he would win this past time. I voted for him. He's now re-registered as a Democrat because this is overwhelmingly a Democrat city. But he's former. He ran the board of USC, so I'm very familiar with him. Smart guy, just knows how to run a business, and that's what I think New York needs. You get a socialist in there, and I agree with you about this guy from everything I've read. Um, and they just start throwing money at problems and taxing everybody too much. You can't, it's not going to support itself. It's already expensive to live in New York. Um, so I
Just
think to answer your question, I think 5 years from now, if he does win, and he probably will, yeah, they'll be looking at some businessman coming up, and hopefully this time it won't be a guy who doesn't know how to run a business or make a deal, who used to live in New York. Hopefully it'll be someone who really knows their stuff.
this will also cause a backlash, I believe, if Mamdani wins, for the Democrats throughout the U.S. Hakeem Jeffries came out and threw his support behind Mamdani this past weekend.
Hmm.
It's going to come back and probably bite him in the tush
It
at some
could.
point.
You're right. Yeah. And it's interesting that he waited so long. I think he was hoping that he wouldn't have to do that. I think this
I
is just all
believe that's
politics.
correct. I
Yeah.
think he
But
was pressured into doing it by somebody.
yeah,
I
I
would
bet
love
you're
to
right.
know who that was.
Yeah. Yeah. But we'll see. The pendulum goes back and forth.
Let's talk about gunboat diplomacy a little bit. It continues in the Caribbean with Venezuela. The past 5 days have had reports of U.S. Bombers flying overhead, not
Hmm.
within Venezuelan territory, but over the Caribbean and close by. And they have been verified by the Wall Street Journal. Okay. Just as a show of force, as they say. Also, did I hear correctly that yesterday the U.S. took out some type of, I don't know if it was a boat or vehicle within the Mexican territory?
Yeah, there were conflicting reports about who the boat or vehicle belonged to, but there were a couple of strikes now in the Pacific. So my guess is that that's Mexico, because Venezuela doesn't reach over to the Pacific. Anyway, so yeah,
Um,
they attacked some supposed drug runner boats, but again, they're not arresting anybody. We don't have any. We don't know what this is about. They just keep saying what it's about, but it's hard to believe them when there's so many other lies constantly going through the media from the government. I don't know what to believe or why they're doing this.
See, this is my point and why I was talking about the Netherlands and Argentina and even the election in New York City. Do we really believe anything on any side
Yeah, it
that
can't.
the media is basically saying now?
Well, it depends on the
Everybody,
media. the media, if you have to make sure that you go through mainstream media that has enough fact checkers within and has certain journalistic standards. So these aren't
Well,
the
like
opinion
what? The
shows;
New
they aren't the
York
opinion.
Times?
Yeah, the New York Times is just that
Oh, come on.
that does, yeah, that tips a little liberal as it always has. Same with the L.A. Times.
Or the
But you could say the
BBC?
same thing about the. But yeah, Wall Street Journal has great journalistic standards, and they skew a little bit right. But
Yeah, but
the ones to avoid are things like Fox
they,
News and CNN, where they're just like really tipping to one degree or another.
let me tell you,
Um,
the New York Times tips towards the left. My
I just said
opinion.
that. Yeah,
The
I just
Wall
said that.
Street Journal, so you have to look at a lot of these things skeptically from the right as well, from Fox News, even from, what is it, News Nation, which I started to watch quite a bit, from Bloomberg, you know,
Yeah.
the
Well,
me-
that's why you have to double check. That's what drives me crazy when people read something, especially if it's just some chat group or some, TikTok thing, and they assume it's the truth. You can't anymore. You have to be able to fact check for yourself, double check it, do a Google search, not Chat GPT because it's still hallucinating a little bit. Do a Google search, look it up on
hallucinate a little
Reuters
bit. It's hallucinating
or
more
the
now. Yeah.
Associated Press. Something just to see if who else is reporting this. And if
Okay.
you're only seeing it from conservative or liberal outlets, then you'll take it with a grain of salt.
I think people should just listen to our show for some sanity sometimes.
There you go.
So let's talk about milestones and behavioral sentiment in the equity indexes. The S&P right now is at 6,880. Earlier today it was above 6,900. Now, the point about milestones for me that I want to talk about is that computers, which are programmed by humans, are not always the most intelligent things. It's all fugazi. And having been in the financial world for over 30 years, I can tell you a lot of the things that go on in the market, my opinion, move based on behavioral sentiment. They move based on a belief in something, the system, in momentum. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Therefore, we have the S&P, which is within sight of 7,000, hasn't gone above it, hasn't touched it yet. We have the NASDAQ, which is now over 26,000 as of right now. Okay. Only a couple of weeks ago, we were wondering if it could really consistently stay over 25,000. But interestingly, we have the Nikkei index making a record. And early this week, it started trading over 50,000. So major milestones have all been hit on these indexes in the last week. My question to you is, do you really believe in this stuff? Would you be buying right now if you were going to be an investor? Or would you say, oh, these things are really high? The reason why I ask you the question
Yeah.
is because someone calls me up today, someone who's been in the business 20 years. They wanted my opinion on the markets. And I said, look, my opinion, you have to buy and hold on. And the reason for that is because everyone's talking about these markets as if they've gone up 30% since April. Okay, 30%, 20%, or more or less. It depends on the particular index. But here's the point: the indexes all actually got killed in April when Trump started talking about tariffs. So if you compare the value now to the value actually in February, the gains really aren't all that significant with the S&P or the Nasdaq or the Dow Jones. They're higher certainly, but it's not been a bull's rush of momentum in which multi-million dollars have been made if you were holding onto a position from February until now. Because in April, you actually lost a lot of money. I have a question. What do you think about all of this? Do you sit at the table and have discussions with your wife about this at night? Do you wonder about it when you're having lunch? Or do you just close your eyes and say, screw it, let it run?
we have investments, but I'm staying away from doing new ones until I see the dust settle. There's a lot of dust that needs to settle. Um, I think that a lot of people have just sort of gotten numb to, all of the, every day there's this another report, and then they change their mind the next day, and whether it's tariffs or whatever, things keep going up and down, and I think everybody's just sort of like, well, until it really starts biting, I'll just keep investing, or I'll just do status quo. But the rooster's got to come home at some point, and the question is when.
But
And I don't, I
in the
don't know.
meantime, is this a victory for Trump?
I think he's living on borrowed time in terms of victories. I think that I think a lot of people are just sort of giving him the benefit of a doubt, in the financial markets, and I think they're overlooking the fact that there's a lot of rot that's coming up, from layoffs, mass layoffs, to government shutdowns, to the
I saw
tariffs
that
when they start
Amazon
kicking
cut
in.
30,000 jobs yesterday or
Yeah,
something.
they cut a huge amount
You
of
see,
jobs yesterday.
UPS
Paramount,
announced
mm-hmm,
UPS announced
yep.
massive job cuts today.
Paramount just did today. They laid off 10% of their workforce. Um, plus you have all these furloughed government employees that
Mm.
and there's just so much of it going on. It's just you can't keep up with it all. So you're not hearing about some here, some there. And then you think about all the, the farm industry and what's going on across the board there. And you think about
Mm.
there's inflation. There was a report out last week. Inflation did kick up a little more. It's up 3% overall over what it was a year ago. Eggs are down, but everything is also coffee's 19 or 20% up. So, after a while, it just starts, eating into the overall economy. And if you, yeah, they reduced the by 25% today, but what's that going to do to inflation? Because as you said earlier in the show, the Fed reduced the rate, so it's
Let,
a little bit, I don't know, frothy, as
let, let, yeah,
Greenspan used to like to say.
let's circle back here to like the government shutdown and everything, because it's still a political issue. And people, as we spoke about last week, are looking to score points, political points. That's what this is about. Because both sides spend money, as I pointed out the last time, out of their eardrums.
Hmm.
Okay? At the end of the day, they can't tell you where the money's being spent. They don't know. I mean, they know their pet projects. They might know their friend's project down the hall, but they can't tell you where every dollar is being spent. Okay? Point being that when people are losing jobs, if the markets were to go sour, certainly that would put Trump on his heels for the first time in a while. But he has scored some political points right now. And from me to you, if Mamdani wins this election next week, I think that's actually a victory for the Republicans, because they are going to use
I
that
I agree.
in a huge way.
Yep.
Just
I agree, but it won't be effective for them until some of Mamdani's policies come into play and don't do well, which
if he can get them
is
passed too.
assured. But that'll
Yeah.
take, a year and
Yeah.
before things can start getting blamed on him,
I'll
assuming
agree.
he
Yeah,
wins.
I agree. Look,
And then by then
again,
we've got the midterms coming in. So I don't know.
yeah,
They'll
yeah,
probably make a
this
play
time
of it
next year.
at that point. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
this time next year.
Yeah. The Risk Reward Show is a weekly podcast covering current events in worldwide business. Headquartered in Los Angeles and Tel Aviv, with partners in Chicago, New York, London, Shanghai, Mumbai, and Cape Town, we source opinions and news directly from where they're happening, then pass them along to you. Look for us wherever you get your podcast fix.